All right, we're finally going here. Got a little late start, but nonetheless, we're ready to go. We're doing our Orrery project here. So today, the goal of our project is to get another couple of gears drawn, and also get our first joints animated here. So. No, this is not a project that you can only do in Illinois because it's got joints in it. These are the kind of joints that are like hinges and such, or in our case gears. So you can see that this is moving around, and if you watch carefully, you can see that the gear teeth actually mesh up correctly.
Okay.
So that's cool.
Do you have to be online to pull the Orrery file down?
Maybe.
I'm clicking and double clicking and it's laughing at me.
You may have to be on the internet to download a file.
Oh, you probably do.
Tony, can I jump back in for just a minute then to get that file?
Yeah, I just changed it to all. I needed the internet for other things. So give me 1 second.
All right, so like I said, we're going to be trying to make another gear, and we're going to try to make a joint out of that gear, and you see that it's meshing real nicely like that. And then we'll go from there. Hopefully we'll get another 2 gears drawn and some joints made. So here is our file. You can see that I've got my main document component, which is in my browser here, and I can spin down the little triangle next to that main document component. And in that main document component, we've got our 2 components from our previous classes. We've got our bulb component, and we've got our helical gear, our 52 tooth gear that we made last week. I'm going to make sure that I leave as the active component the little radio button here. So there are buttons that I can click next to each one of these components, and that will make them the active component. But I want to make sure that I leave my main document component as the active component. Because, thanks Tony, because the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to make another gear. We've already got our helical gear generator downloaded, and so if we click on the create menu and we scroll down to the very bottom, for me is Helical Gear Plus, and we'll go ahead and choose that. And now I have to check how many teeth we're supposed to be making this gear. This is going to be a 29 tooth gear. So, oh look, and because I clicked away, it went ahead and made it for me, so I got to delete one. Alright, so create Helical Gear Plus. Alright, I'm pretty sure we've been making 3mm module gears. Nope, I lied. We're making 4mm module gears. So we're going to change that module size to 4mm. We're going to change our helix angle. This is maybe I'm going to turn on the preview button here so we can kind of see what we're doing when we do this. So if I click that little preview checkbox in our Helical Gear Plus window, then we can actually see the gear that we're making. And now if I change something about that gear, like if I change it to 3mm, you can see it got a lot smaller. Really what it's doing there is it's making the teeth, each one of those teeth, a lot 1 millimeter smaller. So if I make them 4mm, each one of those teeth is 4mm wide, I believe. And we've got an angle of 30 degrees, but we actually want that to be 0. So you can see our gear is straight up and down now. The last thing that I want to make a modification of, or actually 2 more things, is the amount of teeth we're going to have here. So we're going to make this a 29 tooth gear, and then I'm going to change the thickness to from 10 millimeters to 5 millimeters. And that's just going to make it thinner. The width of our gear is going to be thinner. Because this is a machining project eventually, so we're going to cut this out on a CNC machine. And we don't have to have a 10 millimeter thick piece of metal. Because that brass gets expensive. Even when we're not in a global everything shortage. Okay, so now that we've got all that set, I'm going to go ahead and say okay.
Is that 5 millimeters on the gear width, Carl?
Correct, yes, 5
Okay.
millimeters on the gear width. Alright, so our gear is made, but it's not remotely in the right place. So we want to be able to move it into the right place. And I'm going to first start by getting it lined up with the other gear. So there is a function in the modify menu that's called align. If we scroll down from that modify menu to the align option here, and I choose, it's like 2/3 of the way down or so, and I choose align. It's going to be difficult for me to click on the thing that I need to click on because my bulb is right in the way here. So I'm going to turn off the visibility on my bulb because I want to be able to click in the center of my gear. And the center of my gear is kind of inside my bulb here. So I'm going to turn off the little eyeball next to my bulb component here, and that'll just hide everything in that bulb component. And now I can more easily hover over the center of this gear, and I can click on the center of the 29 tooth gear that I just made. And then as the second item I click on, if I kind of zoom in down here, there's a number of ways that I can get the center point of this gear down here. It seems to want to click the center if I hover over kind of an edge circle. Any circle that is concentric on the center of the gear seems to work for me. So any of these outside edges work, as well as these edges along the edges of my inside radius there. And if I click on that, it'll go ahead and snap that gear right down into the same plane, which is perfect.
Wait, sorry, one moment.
No,
Ours
yeah.
looks higher than that.
Uh,
Ours looks like it's on top of it. Almost.
Does it look like that?
Yeah.
So if it's slightly misaligned like this, if I come along and look at it and go, oh, it's not, it made two faces match, but it flipped it. There is a little flip button in your align window here, and if you click that, then it should flip it down into place.
So quick. Little one. And now click the big one. There. There you have it. Oh, there. That's fine. Either one's fine. Okay. And then, not so bad.
Cool. All right. So now we need to know how far off to the side we need to move it, because we got it in line in one place. And we have that information if we kind of dive deep into the gears themselves. In fact, I think it might actually state this information right here. Let me just it might be, I can't edit that sketch for whatever reason, but I can view it, right? Or if I just click on that line, let's measure it just to be on the safe side. So you guys don't have to do this, I'm just verifying. Yes, 116. Okay, cool. So it tells us in the sketches folder for this component how far the midpoint of these gear teeth is. So if you open up the little 29 tooth helical gear component, inside of that component there's a bodies folder and there's a sketches folder here. And inside of your sketches folder, if you spin down the little triangle next to it, it'll tell you that it has a diameter of 116 millimeters. I'm going to do that same thing and just figure out how big our 52 tooth gear is. So I'll look inside of my 52 tooth gear component, and I'll look in the sketches folder inside of that component and just spin down the little triangle so I can see I got 208 millimeters. So that is the distance, or half of that distance rather, is the distance we need to move our 29 tooth gear away. So I'm going to go ahead and from my modify menu, I'm going to go ahead and choose the move option. So now we're not aligning something to a specific area, we're moving it over to an area. And I'm going to change the object, the move object here, I'm going to change that to a component. And now the component, I can either click on it here in my drawing view, or I can click on it over here in my browser. So over here in my browser, I can just click on that 29 tooth gear. And I'm going to move it, I'm just going to start moving one of these arrows until I can see that that is clearly my X distance. So I should probably try to turn off the lights here in some way, shape, or form, shouldn't I? Let me make it easier to see the screen here.
Because the X is a red line. You see the top right? X, Y, and Z, Either way. That one is the Y.
Oh, I bet I'm not going to be able to do this because we don't have the internet.
Rory was able to get on Wi-Fi though. I was before. I don't know if I still am.
Is that better?
Does that work for you guys?
Works for me.
Alright, cool. Hold on, I gotta answer some texts about why I'm not streaming here. Alright, so I'm gonna, now that I know what direction that is, now I have a distance that I can enter in. So I'm gonna enter in a combination of those two measurements. So I'm gonna do 116 millimeters plus 208 millimeters. And if I stick that whole thing in parentheses and I divide it by 2, you can do the math in your head if you have a calculator that works, but you can also do math right here in Fusion, which is fantastic. So it's 116 millimeters plus 208 millimeters, and then that statement is in parentheses and then divided by 2. And if I look from top down, my gear is meshing up real nice. There it is.
Ours is not perfect.
Now, if it doesn't mesh up just like that, if it looks more like this, you can just turn the little knob until it looks right. And you may have to just enter in 1 degree or 1.5 degrees or something like that. But I got lucky and moved it in the right direction. There's a first time for everything. Oh, no, it's not.
Okay, so now 2 down. And make sure you're moving it on the right axis. So right now you're on the Z axis. You want to move it on the X axis.
116 millimeters plus
Can you start?
208 millimeters
Oh, you already did it.
divided by 2.
Got it.
Cool. All right, Mike. Cool.
Just have to elevate it just a skosh.
And then I'm going to go ahead and click on the magical OK button. Oakley dokley. And we'll just take a little pause here, see how everybody's doing. Cool. Cool?
Cool.
Cool. All right, so the next step here is to make this thing rotate. So, yeah, we'll see you guys later. So if we click on the Assemble menu here, and we choose an as-built joint, we want to make a, the component that we're going to make a joint out of is going to be two components, and maybe this is kind of counterintuitive. So we're going to make a joint. We're going to make a joint that is a revolute joint. So instead of rigid, the motion joint type here is going to be a revolute joint. So if I click on that revolute joint, I'm pretty sure the first thing that I want to click on is the one that does the moving. I always forget this until I actually do it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my helical gear, my 52 tooth helical gear. So that's that
Will you
first.
select on the gear or select on the gear component?
I'm choosing, yeah, the gear component in my browser. I'm pretty sure either one works, but I've gotten in the habit of choosing that helical gear component there. And then the second component I'm going to click on is my main document component. So the way up at the top, our main document, mine is called Orrery from class. And once I choose that as my second component in our joint, now I can find the center point just by hovering my mouse over the circle that's near the center of that gear.
Yes.
And if I click on that circle,
Whoa.
mine spins around like this. Now if yours spins around, maybe yours might spin around like this.
Carl?
Is yours doing this?
Something is on drugs. No.
Is it doing that?
Nope. Nope.
Oh.
It's divorcing itself, the inside from the outside, spinning in two different directions.
Oh, you know what? I think that's just a frame rate thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it's just spinning so fast that the draw rate isn't catching up, and it just looks like it's going backwards. Yeah.
That's bizarre. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So now I'm going to go.
Spinning happy.
Yeah, spinning happy. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on OK.
Yes, sir.
Now we want to do that same operation for the other gear that we just made. So I'm going to go up, and I've still got my main document as my active document here. My little radio button is on my main document here. And I point that out now because the joint, we have a new folder now, and that new folder is called Joints.
Yes.
And I think it's important that this Joints folder is outside of any of my components that I've made down here. So if we would have had our helical gear, one of these gears be the main document, be our active component, it would have made that Joints folder inside of this helical gear component.
Okay.
And then sometimes things can get all messed up. So I think it's a good practice to like keep your joints in your main document component and not bury them. So we've got our main document as our active component, and I'm going to do that same procedure. So we'll go up and click on Assemble.
Assemble, as built joint.
Correct, and add.
Revolute joint.
out, and the two components that we're going to click on is, first we're going to click on our helical gear.
The small one that we just built?
Yeah, the small one that we just built, the 29 tooth gear.
Okay.
And then the second component we're going to click on is our main document component.
Okay.
And then same way that I got the center point to that other gear, if I just hover near the center of my gear, it knows that there's a little point there, and then it starts spinning around on it. And once our gear is moved around once and we see that it moves in the right direction, sometimes people will see something like this.
Yeah.
Where you're like, hey, that gear that's not how a gear moves. And if that happens, you just have to change the rotational axis.
Yes.
So my default was the Z axis, and for me that was the right axis. But depending on the drawing surface you aligned your gear with, it may or may not be like that. So just kind of be aware of that's available for you to change which axis it rotates around, or even have a custom axis if it doesn't align with any particular rotational axis there. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and click on OK.
Okay.
We've got two joints here, and it's probably best practice to name these joints. So for me, Rev 1, that's my 52 tooth. And then Rev 2, that is my 29 tooth. Eventually we're actually going to have two 59 tooth, so I'm going to make this 52 tooth 1. And then the next 52 tooth gear we make is going to be 52 tooth 2. Alright, so now if we click on either one of these little flags here, we can, if you double click on it, you get the little degree measurement prompt that pops up there, and I can just spin this little circle, and it moves my gear. However, it does not move the gear next to it, and we really want to move the gear next to it when we want these gears to mesh properly. So in order to do that, in the Assemble menu, we can find a motion link. Motion link is like fourth from the bottom in the list there. And if we choose this motion link option, we can then click on both of our joints. So I can do that by clicking on the joint in my drawing view here. You can see if I hover over the joint, they highlight blue. I can also hover over the joints in the joints folder in the browser. And that's kind of my preference for this.
Does sequence matter?
No. In our case, sequence does not matter.
Okay.
Sometimes sequence matters when one object is moving and the other one is not moving. And in which case, if one object is moving and the other one is not, you want to click on the object that is moving first. But right now, both of these objects are in motion, so sequence does not matter. Now, they're both rotating.
Yep.
They're even rotating in the right direction for me,
Yep.
I think. But if for you they're not rotating in the right direction, sometimes you just got to choose this reverse option here. And that reverse button,
Just reverses one of them.
yeah, reverse is one of them, exactly. However, these are not rotating at the correct ratio. So they're rotating 1 to 1 right now, and we don't want to rotate them 1 to 1. And I think the easiest way to do this, to figure out the ratio that these are moving here, is I just change the angles to match the number of teeth in the gears. So usually I have to try this both ways. So I'm going to make the first angle 52 and the second angle 29. And I can see that that's one is moving way too fast, and the other one is, this is doing the thing that you saw, Mike, where it looked like it was kind of, one was the inside of the gear was moving one way. This is just because of it's moving so fast that it looks like it's drawing the other way. Anyway, so if I just change this the opposite way, if I change the first angle to 29 and the second angle to 52, there we go. So now our gear teeth look like they're meshing up real nicely, which is always the goal. And then I'm going to say OK. So now we've got that motion link made here, and it says motion link 3. I'm going to name that as well. So this is my 52 tooth 1, and we'll put a little dash there to my 29 tooth. So just so I name everything, name the motion link that connects them. It's probably good practice just to get in the habit of naming things. And once that's named, or even before it's named, you could have done this. So now we can test this out, and if we just double click on that little flag, now it moves our gears in conjunction with each other, which is pretty cool. Gears are fun. All right, let's see if we have time to just draw one more gear. So we're going to make one more gear that's also a 52 tooth gear, only it's going to be connected to this 29 tooth gear here. So and by connected to it, I mean kind of like right underneath it. So concentric, that's perfect. Yes, it's going to be concentric with our 29 tooth gear. So if we come up to our create menu here and we come down to the Helical Gear Plus option, it remembers that we're making 4mm module gears. This one is also going to be a 52 tooth gear. I'm going to turn my preview on so I can see said gear as it's being made. And now I want to illustrate that you can do some moving around of the gear and kind of alignment while you're creating the gear here. So it's helpful to know how to use those align tools and how to use those move tools properly. But here we're just going to align these gears with each other, and we can do that right in the Helical Gear Plus window. So there are tabs in our Helical Gear Plus window. The third one over is going to be position. And if we choose, I think we just have to pick the plane. I'm going to rotate to like the underside. We have to pick two planes. Oh boy, what happened there? Where'd it go? Oh, well, that's the plane. So it disappeared, and that is because, gosh, do I have to pick a center point? Is it going to show up? There we go. All right. So that didn't work at all. Why didn't that work at all? Let's try the plane again. The plane I'm going to pick is that plane. All right, so I picked you have to pick a plane and a center point. So let me do that one more time. I'm going to hit cancel here just for the sake of doing this from scratch. So I'll go to Helical Gear Plus. I'll click on the position tab here. I got to turn my preview on. Alright, in the position tab here, I'm going to choose the plane that I want to align this with is actually the underside of my... Actually, let's pick the center point first. Let's do that. So I'm going to highlight the select button next to center. And I'm going to kind of zoom into my 29 tooth gear, and I'm going to choose that little center point of my 29 tooth gear.
I shows the plane, it aligned it on center, but it's about 2 inches up in the air. And I did click on the plane for alignment.
Huh. We can always go with the second option, I suppose, that other align option. Try clicking cancel and then starting from scratch. So now if we come up and click on create and then Helical Gear Plus, now it remembers that I'm making a 52 tooth gear. I just need to turn on my preview. And I'm going to choose to select the center point first. So if I click on the little select by center point there, and then specify
Mine
my...
did not work clicking on the center point. I had to click on the outside radius.
Oh, that works too. All right. And your gears are aligned on center?
Yes.
And now if I just rotated to the underside of my gear, to like kind of the underneath, and then I clicked on my underside of my 29 tooth gear, and then it snapped into alignment like that. Now I'm going to click on OK and see how everybody's doing.
I think I'm okay. This is
Oh, yeah,
the
perfect.
side view right here. That's the top view, that's the bottom view.
All right, cool. So the last thing we want to do here is to get our 52 tooth gear moving in conjunction with our 29 tooth gear. And we'll do that by doing two things. So first we'll make a joint.
Well, do we have to hit OK first on the helical
You do
gear,
have to
not
hit
yet?
OK, yes. Yes, you do have to hit OK, yes.
Okay.
And now if we come up to the assemble menu here, we can make an as-built joint for our second 52 tooth gear. So I'll go ahead and click on as-built joint. The components that I'm going to click on are first going to be my second 52 tooth gear component over in my browser here. And then the next component that I'm going to click on is my main document component again. And then the snapping point is going to be the center of the gear. So wherever it makes it easy for you to click on the center of the gear, there's a couple little green dots that I think are handy to click on that it makes at the center of a gear. And it'll animate that up and spin it around in circles just right. And then if we say OK, now we've got another Revolute joint over in our joints folder. And I'm going to name mine 52 tooth 2. And now we can make our second motion link between the joint that we just made, our second 52 tooth gear, and our 29 tooth gear. So from the assemble menu, I'm going to go ahead and choose the motion link option. I'm going to choose the two joints that I want to create a motion link from.
Okay, Carl, you jumped ahead of me real quick.
Oh, sure.
Okay, which two joints am I clicking on in sequence?
So we want to click on, to make our Revolute joint, we want to click on the 52 tooth gear, the second one.
52 tooth gear?
Yeah, the second 52
Okay.
tooth gear, and then our main document component.
Well, why didn't, hang on. Okay, one selected. not letting me select that second, you said the main component?
Yeah, the main vacuum.
No, it's not accepting that.
Oh, so you're making a motion link.
Yeah.
So click cancel. We want to make a joint.
Oh, okay. I thought, all right.
Yeah, so we just want to make an as-built.
As-built joint, components, the first one is, okay, yeah. That's one, and
Existing assembly relationship.
because we're already bonded to the 29-tooth gear.
Well, now with our first second 52 gear. Tell you what, close down your origin there, or maybe click edit, and then click cancel. And close down your name views, and close down your origin there. And try like turning off your first two components, your other two gear components that we already made a link for. There you go. So yeah, so that one is that one is that one visual.
Okay.
So now,
Assemble,
yeah.
as-built joint. It's gonna be a Revolute joint, okay. So first we pick this guy here, our gear, which is the
Yep.
second gear there.
Well, looks like it's already got a joint. Yeah, it does already have a joint, 52 tooth 2. So yeah, so if you click cancel.
No, that's 52-tooth. Oh, wait,
Yeah, it's already got a joint.
so cancel
Yeah, so
again?
you click cancel.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to answer this, right?
That's,
You're
that's
right.
just, no, it's just telling me it's time to do my drugs.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, so now if you click on assemble and then motion link,
Motion link, okay.
and now you want to click on the joints, so that 52 tooth gear 2 joint,
Okay.
and then the 29 tooth joint. There you go. There we go. So now, presumably they're spinning with each other, but you can spin.
Well,
Yeah, you
let
can-
me turn the other gears back on so I can see them.
Yeah. All right. So that's okay. And I was making my motion link right here, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on motion link, and then I'll
Okay,
choose.
now Carl,
Yeah.
I'm doing weird things with the frame rate here.
Yeah, they spin real fast. So sometimes it's hard to tell if things are moving correctly in the animation.
Okay, so on the 29-tooth gear, I would want to put down 52 for degrees, and on the 52-tooth gear, put down 29 for degrees.
Actually, this is going to be one to
Well,
one.
That links some, that's right.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
because it should be the second motion link should be kind of a one-to-one link.
Yes. Well, take a look.
Yeah.
This looks right to me, except the thing is moving like a rate tape.
Yeah. So if you say OK on your motion link,
Yes.
and then you can test out moving it on your in your
Moving
drawing
the
view.
first 52 gear
Exactly.
to turn the 29 gear and the 52 joint.
Exactly, yeah. And your 29 and your second 52 should be rotating
Almost a 2-to-1
What-
ratio.
actually at like 1-to-1.
In the
Because
real world, but I'm saying if you look at your blue flags,
Mhm. I believe the way that Fusion works is when you say File and Save, even though we don't have the internet,
Yeah,
Fusion saves it to your computer. Well, it saves
Save is
it.
not an option, that's blanked out.
Oh. You don't have an option of save.
No,
If you
I
click
can
on.
do a save as or an export.
Mine is grayed out too, but it let me save.
No.
Oh, actually, it's not letting me save. I saved once. Save
I'm
as.
gonna do save as, on the compute, let's see. Admin,
I think it's not letting me choose save because I just saved. Because if I choose save as, it'll still let me save it in my Fusion 360 projects.
okay.
And
So
then,
just to be paranoid, I'm also gonna do an export.
sure, that's totally allowed. But in the past, when I've not had the internet and tried to use Fusion, also, our internet might be back. It appears as though our internet is back.
Yes it is.
Yeah, our internet is totally back. So yeah, so you can click save as normal, and there we go. So that's it.
We got the internet back.
We'll see you guys next week when we will have the internet.